Welcome. I am Brian Keith Nelson, and this is Uncomplicating Dungeons and Dragons. The rules of D&D can be complicated, unnecessarily so at times, but that shouldn't sway you away from playing. Sure, it can seem intimidating at first glance, but after a bit of time and tears, you too will still glance at the rules from time to time for clarification. But the truth is, most of those big scary rules hardly come into play. And when they do, you'll thankfully have a guide to help you along the way. Now, let's start simplifying this thing so we can sooner get you to having fun. Part 1. Establishing the game. Two things will always be consistent at every D&D table: a DM and their players. The role of the DM is to be your guide in this story, the narrator, if you will, and through the world in which they are God. A lot of planning can go into being a DM to ensure your players are having a good time. Planning monster encounters, story beats, fun puzzles, or whatever you feel your table will enjoy. As the DM, you deliver these experiences. You also may have to lay down the law. Is your party a group of unapologetic murder hobos in a story where you already established they would be playing do-gooders? If yes, show them the world has consequences for their actions and challenge them. If no, well then you really like rolling with the punches, huh? Just be sure to first establish personal table limits before you throw the entire kitchen at them. When you have a world in mind, tell your players in detail and explain to them your expectations for the story, as to avoid turning your Unite the Kingdoms for a Lord of the Ring type war with the Hells into a half the party makes secret pacts with Asmodeus and your table has now turned into the ending of the original Berserk anime. Yeah, we don't do Griffiths here. Now to my players. My sweet, sweet players. If you're going to build a character, please learn your character. What are your class features and abilities? What species specialties do you possess? Knowing what your character is capable of not only includes the flow of play, but also lets you think of more fun and creative ways to play your character, especially if you use spells. Spellcasting usage has a few layers of complications we will go over later, but the biggest thing is players not being aware of the components needed to cast certain spells. At lower levels, this may not be as big of an issue, but with higher level and more powerful spells, your DM may require in-game preparation. I know it sounds like a lot now, but we'll get there. Now, whether you've been playing since you had to walk 2 miles up and down the hill to school every day, you keep up with Critical Role, or are entirely brand new to this, the entire purpose of all of this is to have fun. Session zeros are often used to establish player desires, discuss the story settings, build characters, and fine-tune before the first session. Any questions or concerns should be brought up here. Lastly, before we move on, it's important to remember that you do not have to be an actor to roleplay a character. Don't feel like you need a fun voice or overly deep character backstory. It can simply be yourself with your character's abilities. Don't get caught up in trying to perform Shakespeare. Just pretend you're the super cool spy you've always wanted to be, except now you can wield magic. Part 2. Right tools for the job. The most important tools to have at your disposal are either pen and pencil with paper, erasable marker with a laminated sheet, or a tablet or laptop with charging cord to keep track of character hit points, spells, feats, and notes. But there would be nothing, and there is nothing without the dice. You will find that the dice required for this game are a d4, a d6, a d8, a d10, a d12, and a d20. You may also find an additional d10 with double digits on each side or a d100, both used for percentile rolls. But the most frequently used is the decider, the denier, the divider, the supplier. The D20 controls us all. Want to sink that super awesome battle axe into the head of a purple worm? Roll that D20 to see if you miss, hit it square in the dome, or give it the tremors treatment and blast that nasty graboid back to the earth from whence it came. You will also use it for general skill checks, such as investigating an area, stealing candy from a passing by child, or punching a hole through the door because you don't pick locks. Part 3. Rhythm of Play. The three main pillars of D&D play are social interaction, exploration, and combat. Whichever one you are experiencing, the game unfolds according to this basic pattern. 1. The Dungeon Master describes a scene. The DM tells the players where their adventurers are and what's around them, how many doors lead out of the room, what's on a table, so on and so forth. 2. The players describe what their characters do. Typically, the characters stick together as they travel through a dungeon or another environment. Sometimes, different adventurers do different things. One adventurer might search a treasure chest, while the second examines a mysterious symbol engraved on a wall, and a third keeps watch for monsters. Outside combat, the DM ensures that every character has a chance to act and decides how to resolve their activity. In combat, the characters take turns. 3. The DM narrates the results of the adventurer's actions. Sometimes resolving a task is easy. If an adventurer walks across a room and tries to open a door, the DM might say the door opens and describe what lies behind. But the door might be locked, the floor might hide a trap, or some other circumstances might make it challenging for an adventurer to complete a task. In those cases, the DM might ask the player to roll a die to help determine what happens. Describing the results often leads to another decision point, which brings the game back to step 1. Now, a quick side note to this flow of play here, because this will tend to come up in a table discussion or when someone is playing and not quite sure how to apply rules to their current situation. This definitely will come in handy. Exceptions supersede general rules. General rules govern each part of the game. For example, the combat rules tell you that melee attacks use strength and ranged attacks use dexterity. Now, that's a general rule, and a general rule is in effect as long as something in the game doesn't explicitly say otherwise. The game also includes elements, class features, feats, weapon properties, spells, magic items, monster abilities, and the like, with sometimes contradicting a general rule. When an exception and a general rule disagree, the exception wins. For example, if a feature says you can make melee attacks using your charisma, you can do so, even though the statement disagrees with the general rule. Now, most people know that Spider-Man has the Sinister Six. Well, D&D has the 6 abilities, and they are as follows. Strength measures your physical might. Dexterity measures your agility, reflexes, and balance. Constitution measures your health and stamina. Intelligence measures your reasoning and memory. Wisdom measures perceptiveness and mental fortitude, while charisma measures confidence, poise, and charm. Okay, anonymous voice with no face guy, we know what these abilities are, but what do we do with them? Well, worry not, for I have a few examples for you. With your strength ability, you can lift, push, pull, or break something. With your dexterity ability, you can move nimbly, quickly, or quietly. With your constitution ability, you can push your body beyond normal limits. With your intelligence ability, you can reason or remember. With your wisdom ability, you can notice things in the environment or in creatures' behavior. And with the charisma ability, you can influence, entertain, or deceive. These abilities will also come in handy whenever you should find yourself in a situation where you need to make a saving throw. But let's not worry about that right now. We can get into that a little bit later. Instead, let me give you a few examples of how your abilities can assist you in saving throws. With your strength ability, you physically resist direct force. With your dexterity ability, you dodge out of harm's way. With your constitution ability, you endure a toxic hazard. With your intelligence ability, you recognize an illusion as fake. With your wisdom ability, you resist a mental assault. And with your charisma ability, you assert your identity. Stops those possessions, eh? But as you can see here, or as you can listen here, abilities are the gift that just keep on giving, because they supply so much more to this game. Which now, let's get into what these abilities provide you with, some skills. With your acrobatics skill, you apply dexterity to stay on your feet in a tricky situation or perform an acrobatic stunt. Using the animal handling skill, you apply your wisdom to calm or train an animal, or get an animal to behave in a certain way. With your arcana skill, you apply your intelligence to recall lore about spells, magic items, and the planes of existence. With your athletics skill, you apply your strength to jump farther than normal, stay afloat in rough water, or break something. With your deception skill, you apply your charisma to tell a convincing lie, or wear a disguise convincingly. With your history skill, you apply your intelligence to recall lore about historical events, people, nations, and cultures. With your insight skill, you apply your wisdom to discern a person's mood and intentions. With your intimidation skill, you apply your charisma so you can awe or threaten someone into doing exactly what you want. With your investigation skill, you apply your intelligence to find obscure information in books or deduce how something works. With your medicine skill, you apply your wisdom to diagnose an illness or determine what killed the recently slain. With your nature skill, you apply your intelligence. You recall lore about terrain, plants, animals, and weather. With your perception skill, you apply your wisdom, using a combination of senses, notice something that's easy to miss. With your performance skill, you apply your charisma to act, tell a story, perform music, or dance. With the persuasion skill, you apply your charisma to honestly and graciously convince someone of something. With the religion skill, you apply your intelligence to recall lore about gods, religious rituals, and holy symbols. With the sleight of hand skill, you apply your dexterity to pick a pocket, conceal a handheld object, or perform legerdemain. Using your stealth skill, you apply your dexterity to escape notice by moving quietly and hiding behind things. And finally, you use your survival skill by applying wisdom to follow tracks, forage, find a trail, or avoid natural hazards. Now, once again, I know what you're thinking. Or actually, I don't know what you're thinking, because if I did know what you're thinking, I would be in a completely different professional line today making money that way. So I'm going to take a safe assumption that you were thinking, well, I now know I have these abilities and what they provide me with, but I'm still not sure on what I can do. You tell me we can do all these things, but I'm sure there has to be some sort of guidelines to the actions we can perform in this game, right? Well, lucky for you, that will be the last thing I cover on this episode. It is the actions you can take and what they all do. Taking the attack action means you attack with a weapon or an unarmed strike. Taking the dash action means for the rest of your turn, give yourself extra momentum equal to your speed. If you take the disengage action, your movement doesn't provoke opportunity attacks for the rest of the turn. If you take the dodge action, until the start of your next turn, attack rolls against you have disadvantage, and you make dexterity saving throws with advantage. You lose this benefit if you have the incapacitated condition or if your speed is 0. If you take the help action, you can help another creature's ability check or attack roll or administer first aid. If you take the hide action, you make a dexterity stealth check. If you take the influence action, you make a charisma, deception, intimidation, performance, or persuasion, or wisdom, animal handling check to alter a creature's attitude. If you take the magic action, you cast a spell, use a magic item, or use a magical feature. If you ready an action, you prepare to take an action in response to a trigger that you define. Please define these clearly. They do help, and there can be confusion, so in this game, communication is key. Should be like that in life, but we get it where we can. If you take the search action, you make a wisdom, insight, medicine, perception, or survival check. If you take the study action, you make an intelligence, arcana, history, investigation, nature, or religion check. If you use the action to utilize, you use a non-magical object. Now as we come to the close of this episode, yes, there is still plenty more to learn about this wonderful game. However, I do not want to overload you, and you may need to take some time to go back and review and make some personal notes. But again, this is an episode you can go back and reference after the later episodes come out if you need to kind of help with your character creation and all of the fine details like that. In this episode, we summarized how to establish a world setting and connection between a DM and their players. We summarized what tools you may need with you to properly play and enjoy this game, as well as summarizing the flow of play, which includes abilities, ability checks, skills, saving throws, and actions. In the next episode, we will be simplifying combat as well as dice rolls, going over equipment and spells, and finally getting to character creation. Thank you for listening, and until next time.